What's up guys? This is Church of Caboose, and for this Destiny 2 video, this will be the guide for the final encounter of the Deep Stone Crypt raid, Taniks the Abomination. Not sure how many times we get to kill this dude, but it's been quite a few over the course of Destiny 2 or Destiny's history. Anyways, in this video, I'll show you guys a visual of the layouts of everything. We'll cover the different roles, and I'll take you guys step by step through how everything occurs and what should happen. So, before we get into this video, if you enjoy it, please click the like button, as well as subscribe to my channel. I'd also love for you guys to comment down below, just to let me know if this guide was helpful, and I also would love to know if this helps you to get your first clear, or to help you get a friend to clear. That just always brightens my day to see that things I put out help folks to accomplish their goals inside of this Destiny 2 wonderfulness of a game. Lastly, if you would like for ways to support the channel, links are found down below, and if you would like to be a part of a clan on Xbox, PlayStation, or PC, there is a link for a Vengeful Discord server. Make sure you guys join, and we'll hook you up with the appropriate clan once you are inside of that Discord server. Alright, so now that's all out of the way, let's go ahead and get on into the guide for Taniks the Abomination. So first up, let's talk about team composition. I'd highly suggest you guys have at least one Warlock and one Bubble Titan for the DPS phase, and we'll go into like when things get put down when later on in the video. For loadouts, it's really common for folks to have one Divinity, at least one person with Anarchy doing double slug, so kinetic and energy are both slug shotguns. Usually first in, last out. It's a pretty popular energy shotgun. You want to have Vorpal rounds and probably auto-loading holster on that bad boy. Another common loadout would be a kinetic slug shotgun, and then the energy slot would be the Cloud Strike sniper rifle, which you get by farming out those Empire hunts at playlists on Europa. So that's kind of the loadouts and team composition. For the roles, they more or less stay the same. The suppressor stays the same. Each area that you can kind of see on the gameplay has its own set of 3 of those suppressor balls, and it works just exactly the same as the encounter before in the nuclear descent. To stun, you just stand under one orb, take a shot, go to the next orb, take a shot, then the third one is where it actually stuns the boss, and we'll let everyone deposit their nuclear cores. Just for this one, you want to wait until there's been 2 rounds of people getting stuck. And speaking of people getting stuck in a purple orb ball shell thing, that is what the operator does. The operator does not do anything with cores. All the operator has to do is run around and shoot out these purple orbs that trap players that are carrying the cores. If a player is trapped, they cannot move, which means their radiation gets stacked up, and so operator just needs to shoot down those shields, which is not really hard to do at all. If you just hit the glowing, bright purple squares that are all over that main purple orb, you'll take it out incredibly quickly, like you see right there on screen. So that kind of covers the role. As always, you want to have a backup for each of these roles. So a primary operator, backup operator, primary scanner, backup scanner, primary suppressor, backup suppressor. And there is a strat that involves doing 4 cores at once, but we'll cover that briefly at the end, because if you're watching this guide, you may not be familiar at all with this raid, and doing the 4 orbs is a little bit trickier, but I have a feeling it's going to be the challenge based off of what it's called inside of the directory. So that kind of covers it up for the roles and for the team composition, weapon loadouts. So now I'm going to go ahead and take you guys through my visual graphic that Crazy Corky Queen came up with, so you guys can see the layout of the arena. So in this layout, we can see we have a white area, a blue area, and an orange area. These are the 3 main areas where the boss will go. That will to let you know where you're going at for shooting these thrusters to generate those nuclear cores so you can go on to the damage phase. The white area is by where you all spawn in, where you walk and drop into the arena from after completing the nuclear descent. That blue area is kind of shaded blue when you're playing the game, and the orange area is overtly orange, and it's usually referred to as the orange. And there are these bins, just like before in the nuclear descent, only instead of having 4, you have 6. There's 2 in each of these areas. You got on screen that they're indicated by the numbers 1 through 6, as well as those green stars. Then our suppressor orbs are indicated by those blue circles that let you know where each area has its own suppressor orbs, and that'll be key for the suppressors. Then, as always, that yellow slash orange-ish, depending upon how you see colors, if you're like me, it looks orange, boxes are the augment terminals, and that is where you would transfer around your different terminals. And if you end up doing the 4-orb strategy, which we'll talk more about at the end, you will only need to worry about really putting in your own scanner or augment, whatever it is, into that terminal, so that way you can just pick it up after the damage phase, and you don't necessarily have to worry too much about passing it around, which is a nice thing about this whole encounter. So this is the layout of what's going on. That boss DPS is in the middle, and the reason there's 2 rings around it is because if you cannot actually be inside that final circle on the boss and using swords, there's kind of rings, and you'll see that with the gameplay. And so you want to be in between that boss ring and the outside ring in order to do your DPS. So now we've got the layout of this whole thing. It's worth noting, if you want to have more access to it, feel free to take a screenshot, or if you join the Vengeful Discord server, they are all pinned inside of different messages in that server, so that way everyone can access them whenever they like. So now let's go ahead and talk about the order of operations, and as we kind of go through what happens when, I will also give some little tips for each of these different steps as needed. So here we go. So now that we know where everything is laid out, team composition and weapon loadout suggestions, let's go over the order of what happens inside of this encounter. To start the encounter, you have to have a player either walk up close to the rubble in the middle of the map where boss DPS is at, as was notated on that visual graphic earlier, or you can have somebody shoot at it, and that will eventually start the encounter. Once the encounter is started, you will then need to clear out ads until everyone's picked up their role. If you are the operator, you probably want to be in the white or spawn area, because that's where the operator player or ad spawns at. The suppressor one spawns in the orange area, and the scanner one spawns in the blue area. Once you have all of your roles, the scanner needs to be looking and calling out what bin to dump these cores to as soon as possible. And then you'll notice eventually that boss will be moving to one of the 3 locations, orange, white, or blue. Once the boss is over there, you need to create at least 2 nuclear cores. And then so you shoot at those thrusters, and that will generate nuclear cores. The teams that carry those nuclear cores to the bins the scanner called out are as follows. It's really common for the scanner team to be 1 pair for taking care of one of those nuclear cores. The other team is usually the backup suppressor and backup operator. The reason it's this way is because operator primary and suppressor primary both have actions you need to do during the phase of carrying those nuclear cores to those bins, and so they cannot be carrying cores in order to successfully complete this part of the encounter. And so backups and scanner team are usually who does it, because scanner, their job is just to call up the bins, and once they do, their job is done. So once you have gotten those 2 orbs dunked, that means now it's time to do it again, that whole cycle. When you're carrying those cores to those bins, it is important for each team to stay close together, because you've got the radiation stacking up just like in the last encounter, as well as getting stuck in those purple bubbles. And so if someone gets high on radiation and they're stuck in the orb, and you're with them, you can just take the core from them and you guys can pass it back and forth until you are able to deposit into the bin. The other reason to go in pairs is because each area will tend to have a fair amount of ads, especially those yellow bar captains, and they can be rather dangerous. Once you've gone through this cycle of the thrusters twice, That means you've deposited a total of 4 orbs. It is time for damage, just like you see on screen. So you would have a bubble go up, get that Weapons of Light, hop over the debris into that ring that you saw me hop into on screen, and then you begin your damage. You'll notice right there, after a little bit, you get bumped out. If you do 4 cores at once, you get like almost 3 little damage cycles. If you do the 2 cores at a time, you get bumped out once, and then you get to hop in and do it again. If you do 4 cores, you hop in, get bumped out, hop in, get bumped out, hopped in, damage over. And you just repeat that same cycle until you get to the boss's last stand. Once the boss is at the last stand, it's just like the Atrax, it's just rapid fire. But instead of it having to be with depositing nuclear cores, it's just the boss teleporting himself between orange, white, and blue spawn areas. Just do as much damage as you can, and hopefully you kill his happy butt and gain the rewards. And that is this encounter. Now, I did mention that we're going to talk a little bit about if you want to try the 4 orb strat, which I'm calling it now. I think is going to be the challenge mode based off of the names of these different challenges inside of the Deepstone Crypt raid title area. I think it's going to be doing all 4 cores. So let me just kind of explain to you guys how you do that. Once you're used to how this whole thing works with doing 2 cores at a time, doing 4 really isn't too bad. It's almost in some degrees easier, but a little bit riskier. So if you're trying to do a flawless run, I would not suggest doing 4 cores unless your team's really good at it. I would stick with the 2. But for 4, you just would ideally have 2 Nova Bomb Warlocks, and when that boss goes to one of those areas and the cores thrusters light up, you have one person Nova the front Slova Bomb the front thrusters, and another one Slova Bomb the back thrusters. And it'll drop all 4 cores at the same time. At which point, the 4 people, so everyone besides Suppressor and Operator, would grab 1 core and take it to an appropriate number, and then the Suppressor would suppress, and everyone would dunk it pretty much at the same time. There's a couple of little finessing things with this strategy. One is that you need to kind of pick up all of those cores about the same time, because if someone picks it up too quick, that might lock out one of the thrusters, and so maybe you don't get all 4 to break, in which point you would actually need your scanner to make some callouts. The other thing with this is that if you don't grab stuff at the same time, people tend to have different radiation levels, and it can get really tricky. Suppressor needs to make sure they wait to suppress until there's been 2 pulses of that orange, or it's not orange, that purple pink aura circle thing, and that would then be when they do the final suppressor, and you want to have that prime. So you want to be on that last bubble by the time that second one goes off, because everyone's going to need to deposit pretty much right when they get to their bins, because most of the time they'll be between 7 and 8 radiation, which means they're about to die, so suppressor needs to be on point. And then as soon as you do all 4 orbs, it's immediately to damage phase, which is why this is a pretty nifty way of approaching this encounter. Why I put that into this video is because this raid's been out for about a week and a half as I am recording, and it might be more common to run into teams that are down to teach, but are going to want to do 4 orbs, and so now you're at least somewhat familiar with how the encounter works normally, and with how the encounter works with having the 4 orbs. Alright guys, I really appreciate you all so much for watching this video and this guide. I really hope it helps, and that it gets you all some of those clears, and gets to those emblems and that sweet loot, and for the lucky few of y'all, that rocket launcher. I'm currently at 9 clears for rewards, and no rocket launcher yet, and I've got 2 clanmates who got it on their first clear, and that doesn't hurt at all. Everything's fine. It's okay. I didn't get mad or a little sad about that at all. So now you've beaten this boss, let me know down below how that went. Thank you guys all so much. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, and it's worth noting, if you do already beat the boss, you might as well run this thing over and over, because you can get different chances at different rolls from that final chest of weapons you've already acquired, as well as opening up caches that can give you some stuff. I am Church of Caboose. Have a great week, and happy grinding, y'all.